Hello, everybody. Happy Friday and welcome to VML Season 11. My name's Haiyue. I'm here with Filipa and we are sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. Filipa, finally here, the finals of VML Season 11. Can you believe it? What a season it's been.
That's true. It passed so fast, though. I feel like even with an extra week for the wild card, these seasons keep going faster and faster, and we were just talking about that, and it just passes way too fast.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it was just yesterday we were sitting here being excited, like, oh, it's time for a new season. But now we made it all the way to the top eight. So, all the players that you're going to be seeing tonight, they have been battling through their 7 weeks of division play. They've beaten out all the competitors in their divisions. They played through the playoffs, survived multiple rounds of the single elimination, and here they are in the top eight. So let me just tell you all what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to be showing you one of the quarterfinal matches. The quarterfinals were played earlier. So, the VML usually you can schedule your matches in the finals week. You get to schedule your quarterfinals. So they've all been played. We're going to show you a recorded quarterfinals match, but then we're going to have the top four players come on and they are going to be playing both the semifinals and the finals live. So we're going to have 3 matches of live magic for you here on the VML stream. And it is the most exciting night of the season. And we're going to be seeing how our competitors play as they fight over that $7,000 prize pool. It's a lot of money, Filipa.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, and really, I'm always impressed by the players on top eight because we keep seeing some of the same names over and over again, and it just goes to show these people put so much work. I have been playing the VML almost since the beginning. I think since season three, and I my best score is a top 16. These people, I see them on top eight over and over again, and I wonder how can they do this because it's not easy.
It's extremely difficult. I mean, just not only like having to play, this many rounds of Magic, like a lot of events are this many rounds of Magic, right? But having to play that over 10 weeks, 11 weeks, this means you have to really have mastered the format. You have to know exactly what decks are good, how your deck matches up against all of these things, and you have to get into the heads of your opponents. So, certainly a huge achievement to make it here to the top eight. And as we get into that, let's have a look at the bracket and see who the players were that made it here. So, top of the bracket there, you see CliffBoyardee against Noor Singh. That was one of the quarterfinals. Second one, but Taco against Amy Altman. Sam Bogue against Brittany. VioletViatt against Juno JG Hayes. And like you say, Filipa, there are a lot of names here that I have seen in top eights of previous VMLs and top tiers of other competitive events out there. So impressive players, all 8 of them.
Yeah, very impressive top eight. As you said, a lot of familiar names, and I'm very excited to see what decks they're going to bring here for the top eight.
For sure. So before we get into that quarterfinal, the other 3 quarterfinals we're not going to show, but we are going to tell you what happened in them, so that we know, after this match where we are in the standings, and we're going to also show you a little bit about the players who didn't make it to this live event tonight, because all 8 players really deserve a bit of recognition. So let's bring up the loser from our second quarterfinal. Oh, let's have a metagame. Sure, let's do it. Filipa, you wanted to know what decks people brought? Well, it's not all Esper.
No, it's not all Esper, and I am actually very impressed by the diversity here of our meta breakdown. I see like only one Boros Convoke, so people not really opting for the more aggressive strategies. We see mid-range, control, Golgari Midrange as well, and Sultai ramp, which a 5 color domain. So very different decks. And it really goes to show people have been trying to know what their opponent are going to be playing and trying to play the deck that pairs best against it. But once you go in the top eight, you have to lock the deck for the all top eight. So you know you're going to face different kinds of decks every game, and hopefully you'll get to the finals. So the mid range strategy does seem wise here. So you can try to adapt after sideboard if you're playing against control or if you're playing against aggro. So I think a lot of the players choosing to go mid range here because of that.
Yeah, that I think makes a lot of sense to me. And also, standard is just in this place, right? Like it's a huge standard that we have right now, probably the biggest standard we've ever seen, maybe. And the and so it's no surprise that there's a great variety of decks coming into the top eight just because there's just so many viable strategies right now. And like you say, lack of aggro, I think that kind of makes sense to me as well, Felipe, because especially if you're expecting a bunch of mid range, it might be a little bit risky to bring something like
Yeah, and there's a lot of answers against aggro. We saw a lot of temporary lockdowns, cut down. They're very strong tools to play against these decks. A lot of board wipes overall, so it makes sense here to bring some sort of mid-rangey more type of deck. So I'm excited though because almost all of the decks are different. So we have one, two, three, four, five, six different decks. That's pretty good to see, and I'm kind of curious to know what deck is going to get it into the finals and what deck is going to be the VML champion.
Me too. All right. So, uh, before we get into our first feature match, let's just have a look at those players who didn't make it to the semifinals. I think we can bring up. There we see it. So Amy Altman was unfortunately the loser of our second quarterfinals. She was the Boros Convoke player. So Filipa, the one aggro deck falling in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, for all the aggro lovers, Boros Convoke is, in my opinion, the best aggro deck to play, and even then couldn't make it into the finals or the semifinals, but still, Amy playing beautiful all season, and she definitely should be proud. She already locked so many good things, the VML Championship, as well as the invited regional championship. But yeah, unfortunately, it's so much mid-range and so many tools against aggro. We are not going to see it in the semifinals.
All right, and then let's move on to our second player who fell at the quarterfinals. It's Brittany, and Brittany is another of these players who, by the way, is incredible. Like, she's just here every season, and she plays so many tournaments, so many events. Uh, Brought five color domain, and unfortunately did not make it through to the quarterfinals. And honestly, I love five color domain, Felipa.
Yeah, I mean it's a great choice. Everything that you can play at Traxine, usually I love it. And the five color domain is just it was once the most played deck in standard, but as you said, standard is now one of the biggest standards we see, and with that more decks start to being played and other decks rise to the top. But definitely one of the top decks of the format, and it really rewards you if you are playing it well. And I think Brittany is one of those people. She has been doing so great in the VML. I always hear one of those players that I was referring doing top finishes over and over again. So although she didn't make it into the semifinals, congratulations on the top eight and the regional championship invite and VML championship and all those good things.
For sure. And now let's have a look at our final player who didn't make it here to the to the semifinals. And it is oh, it's Juno. So JG Hayes. I mean, they again another player that we see a lot in these upper echelons of the VML on Esper Midrange. So one of the Esper Midrange lists, Filipa, did fall at the first hurdle this week.
Yeah, and I think here in the questionnaire, the answer, how did you select your deck going into the finals? And they say, I wanted to play a deck that was fairly even into an open field. And I really think that's why Esper Midrange is the most played deck here. It can be good against all kind of decks, against aggro, against more control decks as well. So it plays very evenly in the field. So it makes sense that it was the most chosen deck here for the top eight. Unfortunately, they didn't make it here into the semifinals, but doing pretty well overall. And I know they're excited, hoping to be able to qualify for their first Pro Tour this year. And this is the first step. qualifying into the regional championships, into the VML championship. Those are two tournaments that can get you in the Pro Tour. And we see people from the VML doing so well at the Pro Tour, not only qualifying, but then
So
getting
well.
there and doing well. So definitely congratulations on the top 8. And you got there on the first step to qualifying for the Pro Tour.
For sure. All right. So let's just come back to the booth room minute because I do actually want to talk a little bit about that, Filipa, because uh the the VML championships last year, we sent 2 players from the VML championships to the PT and a whole bunch of more players through the regional championships who then qualified into the PT. And in Chicago, we saw incredible results. We saw Heath, who was our, I believe, runner-up in the VML championships. They requalified for the next Pro Tour. A bunch of people made day 2. I think at least 3 or 4 people requalified. So it was an incredible showing for the VML crew and the community. And of course, shout out to Sanctum of All, the coolest testing team on the Pro Tour, and we of course wish them all the best going into the next PT as well.
I'm so proud. And this was not even a standard Pro Tour. It was a Pioneer plus Draft Pro Tour, and they did so well. So I can only imagine, because I feel like once there's a Pro Tour with standard, the VML is going to dominate after so much
Absolutely.
trial and so much testing.
Yeah, we've been playing standard for years, guys. Come on.
We're prepared for this.
We're prepared. Oh, all right. Okay. That's all the preamble done. Let's have a look at our first feature match for the evening. It is that last quarterfinal, that one at the top of the bracket. And we have on the one side Cliff. Cliff has brought Golgari Midrange. And he said he selected Golgari with the purpose of beating Analyst combo and Esper, and hopefully that pays off. What stands out to you about this Golgari list?
So first of all, I play Golgari mid-range if I can, and I struggle so much against the Analyst combo. So Cliff, please DM me and tell me how do you do it, and teach me your ways. I mean, I do see 2 Tranquil Frillbacks main, which that is a way you can exile your opponent's graveyard. So that's a way to beat the Analyst combo. And you also have the Deep Cavern Bats that allow you to delay your opponent. Nisa can perhaps destroy the Virtue. So there are some tools that can be really good against that matchup, and some sideboard cards like Unlicensed Earth. But once again, teach me how you're doing it, because I want to learn.
All right, Cliff. If you're watching, just slide into Filipa's DMs later. She needs some help. Let's have a look at who Cliff is playing against in the quarterfinals here, and it is, I believe, it's Analyst combo in the hands of Noor, Singh, and of course, that 64 card special this time. You can just see those 4 little extra cards hanging out at the bottom of the deck list there. This deck, as we all know, came about because of friend of the VML, CFD Sock, just absolutely dominating that standard event in Chicago with the 68 card special. And now it's kind of evolved a bit. The Slowgurks have gone from the deck, sadly, but the Analysts are still there, and all that hilarious ramping and reclamation style stuff still going on. So Noor, we know, absolutely loves this deck, loves this archetype, and I am excited to find out how it goes between these 2 players.
Yeah, definitely a great deck. Faye made a great choice. I've been playing this deck lately because if you cannot beat it, join them. And this deck does some wild things. Doppelganger, though, I broke arena with Doppelganger. If you select too many targets with Doppelganger, you're going to crash the system. So that's something to be aware of.
I see. Okay.
People are also bringing Stone Brains these days, which I really like that Faye chose to bring multiple win cons. So not only the World Soul Rage, but we also have Atraxa. So not only one win con, only 2 Soul Rages, even worldwide, all Soul Rages in this deck even. So I really like that Noor decided to bring a bit of a more diversified list. So I really like the choice.
All right, I am excited to see whether Noor breaks arena. Let's get down to the action, and see who's gonna make it to the semifinals. And just to remind you, of course, this was recorded earlier on in the week, but the winner of this match is here this evening to get into those live semifinals. Looking at these opening hands, looks like a keep for both players. That's a bat right on turn number 2 for Cliff.
Yeah, not only a bat, but also the Frillback, which I think it's one of the best cards in this against this matchup. We see that Noor does have the Analyst, but once again, if the Grave gets exiled on time, that doesn't do much. So yeah, both players with good ends here, and that Deep Cavern Bat can choose now because there's options.
Yeah, there's definitely quite a few options here. 2 copies of the Analyst. So not necessarily going to be able to deprive Noor of that key card, but could take something like the Go for the Throat or the Joint Exploration, which is that kind of growth spiral type effect that we love in these RAM decks. What do you like here?
Yeah, so both Joint Exploration and Go for Throat are two good options. Joint Exploration does allow you to ramp pretty well, so I think it's a fair choice here. The Go for Throat will take care of the bat, uh, but looks like here even Nor deciding to go to start putting some cards into the graveyard.
Yeah, it was a little bit awkward there for Noor because they did play out the Broker's fetch land on turn 1, getting an island, and that meant that she didn't really have the black mana for Go Over the Throat, and then the Maestro's Theatre would make it tap. It was complicated, but uh, in the end, taking that joint exploration makes a lot of sense to me. And look at this, Liliana going after the Aftermath Annals.
Yeah, and here the mana on this deck is really difficult to play with because you're playing so many different colors. Most of your lands enter tapped, so often you have to make these decisions where either you can do a turn to play or another one. And this is one of those cases. We see there the graveyard pretty full, so that tranquil throwback will be so good.
Yeah, that dinosaur is kind of like licking its lips and like rubbing its hands together, like tasty, tasty graveyard, ready to get exiled.
Yeah. And that's such a great card against this matchup, and really showing why it's being played main. And Faye just nice because she knows this is usually really bad in this matchup.
Yeah, let's use Go for the Throat, take it out in revenge, but unfortunately that's not going to bring the graveyard back, so Nora's going to have to start trying to fill that up again from scratch, and that looks like it's going to be a long way off in this game 1. Meanwhile, Cliff just has everything. Liliana is going. That's a Shieldred ready to drop on the battlefield as well, or a Sorin if he so chooses.
Yeah, so now the difficult choice is if he does choose to plus Liliana, then he might not play land this turn just to be able to discard the Kutaj instead of Sorin. But it looks like he chooses not to plus Liliana and not discard any card, which makes sense because the Restless Kutaj is very good in this matchup. Also allows you to start exiling your opponent's graveyard. It's very aggressive as well, especially because we know that Nori is running I think Deadly Cover Up. So it's always good to have a land that is able to do some damage as well. And Sorin being another great card in this matchup.
Yeah, Sorin the Mirthless comes down. We're going to start filling up the hand once again for Cliff. And Nora's under some pressure now, but he can at least use this Aftermath Analyst.
Yeah,
And
and
look at this.
here,
Nora choosing not to block there.
yeah, just taking all the damage. It's a race, and Cliff is doing a very good job at racing and trying to close the game as fast as possible. which you do have to do against this deck. This deck usually one turn is enough to combo. So go for Throat will be good. It takes care of that Shieldred.
Oh, Atraxa was the draw for Noor.
Yeah, no white though, so not able to cast that Atraxa yet. And
Soren's
look at
just
the
gonna keep
value
going
that.
up.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sorin is such a great value because a lot of decks have removal. Even the blue white control as well. It has removal against creatures. I mean, I guess you also have the get lost, but especially against this matchup, there's not a lot of things that can be done against planeswalkers.
That is true. And it's kind of this interesting feature, right? Because Magic, we're seeing fewer planeswalkers than we used to. And because of that, they're also printing fewer effects that kind of deal with planeswalkers. So there's kind of this two sides of the coin here to this new policy of having fewer planeswalkers than we're used to from a few years ago. Wild Soul's Rage for Noor. That can do something. So X equals 5, though. Not quite enough to deal with Siren here.
Not quite enough, and it looks like it's going to be really difficult for Noor to come back. Faye really needs to have access to a white source of mana, but that's not going to happen soon. And in the meantime, Cliff can start making pressure also with the Restless Cottage. So it's with the Sorin at 6 already as well. And
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, it's just so awkward. I mean, you could take out Soren. You could do 5 damage to Soren, right? But then, like, what does that achieve? You know? It's not gonna. Oh. Okay. All right.
that makes sense. Going for the bat, making sure that she can even cast that joint exploration.
Okay, so now this giant exploration can be cast. It can be kicked. I think then no, we're gonna see Noor get the scry 2, draw a card. And what's Noor looking for here, Filipa?
I mean, I'm trying to see maybe another analyst to put more lands into the graveyard and to get more lands into play. Maybe because a board wipe is not even good enough. So there's not a lot of things that can make it good. Maybe a Celestus to be able to cast the Atraxa would be a good way to get out of the situation. Maybe a Deluge or maybe a Doppelganger. Doppelganger would be a great card here.
Oh, okay, all right. So it looks like Noor found a copy of Go for the Throat, and that could deal with either this Dread Knight, but Dread Knight not really something that you necessarily want to be pointing removal at, Filipa.
No, not really. And I mean, maybe the land. So if Cliff does go for attacking with the land, then that go for throat can be really good. If not, things are not looking so good for Norse. So it really depends. And it looks like Cliff decides not to go for the Restless Cottage, making Nor have to use this removal on the Dread Knight. And as you said, that's not great to do. That Aklazot, though, is such a great card as well. But I think you're not trying to gain time, being like, okay, if you have to
Oh,
play that again, then you cannot Aklazot. But yeah, I mean, that
oh,
bat.
the bat! Oh my goodness! And Cliff drew that off uh the um the adventure side of that Dread Knight as well. So that's gotta hurt. But more rips memory deluge off the top. Let's see what Faye can find here. See a
Path
path
of
of
Peril is
peril.
not bad, but the thing is that Sorin can -7, that's 13 damage plus Restless Cottage, that's enough. So even if Faye decides to use it, which is the solution. Now she's just going to pray that, yeah, Cliff didn't find the solution here, but it looks like he did. So that's 4 damage and then 13 from Sorin.
Wow.
which is not
I
a
don't think I've seen this. I don't think I've ever seen this Sora in Ultimate.
yeah, that's where I was going to say it's not something that you do get to see every day, but I guess that's a win con against these kind of decks. And I'm really curious to see what Cliff does bring.
Well,
And
looks
we
like
see the Ursus, which they are great. More frill back again. Everything that removes the graveyard are great. The cut downs go out. The rests are in, and I really like Cruelty of Geeks as well. Especially when you see that your opponent is playing cards like Atraxa, so you can take the Atraxa off the end, and then you can play it once it reaches the third chapter. Nissa going out, which is interesting. Um, I guess it does make sense because it does cost a lot, and it doesn't have too many targets, maybe Virtue, and Celestus, but if your opponent is already Virtuing, you're already dying, I guess. So
yeah, I think the Nissa just doesn't impact the game in
yeah.
the way that Cliff is looking for sure here. And we're gonna get to have a look at what Noor is doing for her sideboard as well. Looks like just a few little adjustments. Celestis is coming out, maybe a couple of duresses being cut, Dreams of Steel and Oil making it in. Um, but ultimately, fully felt like this kind of deck. How much sideboarding can you really afford to do in a combo deck like this?
Yeah, it's a difficult choice. I mean, it's easier when you're playing against aggro because then you can bring the End of Festivities, the Vengeance. Those are great cards against things like Convoke or Mono Red. But when you're playing against a mid-range deck, things get a bit more difficult.
Mm. All right, let's go down to the second match now. Second game now, rather, of this match. And we're going to have Noor on the play there, starting out with the Maestro's Theatre. And Noor has access to a copy of Triangle Throwback of her own, as well as cut down Dreams of Steel and Oil and plenty of action. Over to Cliff, though, and it's going to be Cliff out there first with the duress on turn number one.
Yeah, and I'm sure Cliff does enjoy to see this hand. I mean, only one more land available. Atraxa is a dream that's not for today, and basically a bunch of cards that are not going to be impactful soon. But look at that, an Analyst is exactly what Noor is looking for. Alongside more lands, but the thing is about this deck is that if you start brinking on lands, things are not going to be looking good.
Well, I mean, Noor found the analyst, but Cliff found the unlicensed hearse out of the sideboard, and that is a pretty key card here for Cliff. He's going to be able to start eating away at the graveyard, and it doesn't do the throwback thing. You know, it doesn't get rid of everything at once, but it does do a good job of keeping it contained, Filipa.
Yeah, and that analyst putting some cards into the graveyard, and Cliff is like, "Thank you, some food for my earth." Uh, I mean, it's that's the key of sideboarding, right? You bring these cards that are just so good in this matchup because Nord does need mana. Without mana, she's not able to do much, and Cliff doing an amazing job with this deck at preventing the combo and delaying it, giving enough time to be able to try and win the game. Now, this deck can win out of nowhere, so
Yeah, definitely plenty to play for here. No, I think would really have liked to have seen a second green source, something that can enable that throwback to come down and maybe take away this unlicensed hearse before it does exactly what it's doing now. But really, just looking for lands in general, Felipa.
yeah, and it's pretty tough because Norse deck does run a lot of lands. Like it's 50% or close to that lands. So it's really rough when the odds are on your side to get lands, but you don't, and it just happens. And the Sentinel going to start to deal some damage as well. The map tokens are also a great tool to start getting either lands into hand or to start getting a look at your top card and yeah, free lands, which is exactly what Nori's probably thinking. I also want some
Yeah.
lands.
Yeah, it would not be fun to, I think, be in North Sea right now thinking, wow, I really wish that was me with these map tokens. But let's see what But you can find there is a land. Okay, so there is a Mace Trust Theatre. That's going to put another land in the graveyard. And at least this means that Noor gets to play some more of these spells that she has in hand. But it's not really that great against this unlicensed house. And Filipa, as we talked about before, kind of one of the problems with this kind of deck is your mana does come in tapped, and you don't really have a lot of agency over necessarily which colors you're getting.
Yeah, and not only that, in this case, Nor pretty unlucky to get two cut downs. They're doing nothing. Usually, cut down is good against the bat, but there is no bat on Cliff's side, so those cut downs are doing nothing. And now we see the cruelty of Greeks that we talked about
Oh,
sideboard, getting that Atraxa, and then being able to reanimate it. Of course, we know that Nor does have Frillback, which can exile the graveyard, but there's no second green, so no way to activate it yet.
no, and I mean, Field of Ruin is going to be able to help North find a second green source, but they are just so behind right now. Memory Deluge is definitely an option that can help her kind of restock the hand, maybe try and find some pieces. But Cliff has just done such a great job of building up this advantage turn by turn, kind of spell by spell, and that is exactly what he set out to do, right? Like told us he brought this deck to target specifically the Analyst deck, and it seems like it's working out for him, Filipa.
Yeah, and now being able to the rest, see if the coast is clear. And a lot of damage can be dealt with that Earth as well already being at 8. So here we see the delusion response, which makes sense because Nor does need more cards and doesn't want to get the rest, the deluge.
Right. I mean, there is that second green source for Noor.
Yeah, and Nor might just go for that Shieldred. Like, coast is clear, you have the rest, you have cut down, so I'm not going to play bat. Two cut downs in this case, so no bat. Let's just play a Shieldred and see how you deal with that. I mean, that Earth is going to be at 10 soon, so Nor needs to find a way to close this game this turn, and Nor also needs to find a way to exile the graveyard so the Atraxa doesn't get back.
Okay, I mean, here is Nissa, Resurgent Animus. That is one part of the combo. It has that Lotus Cobra type effect, so we're going to see her make an extra green mana here, and that is going to let Noor play out this Tranquil Throwback. But she has to decide, is she going to take her own Atraxa out of the graveyard, or is she going to deal with this hers?
I'm not sure if Atraxa is even in the graveyard. I cannot see it, but I don't think Earth took it. I'm not sure, so we'll see.
Yeah, I just see that spelunking that Cliff discarded to the duress. We will find out along with Noor. I mean, if she had one more green source, she would have been able to, of course, do both of those things, which would have been pretty nice. Cliff playing that with Dwayne, the pet rock from.
Oh my god, I love Dwayne. He's my best friend now.
That was so much fun when we were on the arena championships because they didn't really tell us. They just kind of said, "Oh, by the way, you're going to be joined by a fourth caster. Also, he's a rock." It was great.
I love it. I really love it. I don't know where I had this idea, but it's genius.
Okay, Noah's taking out the hearse.
So it looks like the Atraxa is still there. So that Atraxa is going to be back.
Yeah. I mean, here she comes. Oh, this is just so gross. Reanimating your opponent's Atraxa, getting to look at the top 10 cards, getting a card of each type. And there are planeswalkers in this deck, so, you can get a ton of value from this. Although it looks like Cliff is just going to get the 3 cards, but that's 3 pretty insane cards to get there.
Yeah, this is pretty much Cliff just living the dream. Stealing your opponent's Atraxa, it's everyone's dream. So I'm really excited that he was able to manage it. And there's a second cruelty just in case. I mean, Cliff knows the opponent has took cut down, so that cannot do anything against any of these creatures.
Oh my goodness. I've just realized that with the new Jace, you could come down and have it become an Atraxa immediately and attack. These are the kind of thoughts that go through my head.
With the Oko?
And no, with the new Jace that comes out and becomes a copy of, was it the Oko or is it Jace? Oh no, you're right. It's the Oko.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Although
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
legendary, so you have to sacrifice your Atraxa, but your Oko does become legendary. And it's very funny to see it being an Atraxa. Actually, that happened against me in the early access. Somebody Oko'd and copied the Atraxa.
Oh, so gross.
Yeah.
Speaking of gross, here comes this attack from Cliff. And this Golgari midrange deck is absolutely dominating the quarterfinals here, putting Cliff in a great position. So many options to deploy. Could go for that Liliana, start taking down. Looks like it's going to be a cruelty of gigs. Is there anything even to reanimate at this point?
At this point, you might just try to find a card that locks you the game. Uh, that might be another Shieldred, for example, to deal. There's only one more damage that needs to be done.
Right. That's true. Noor is at 3, which is not a good place to be against Shieldred or Atraxa.
So it might be, yeah, the Takanuma to, in case you destroy my Shieldred, I'm going to Takanuma, get it back.
Ouch. And that is a cycle land for Noor. That is not going to do it. May as well Field of Ruin, get a land out of the deck. But this
Yeah.
match has been so one-sided. I mean, Cliff really did exactly what he told us he came here to do with this Golgari mid-range deck. It just seems like it's tailor-made to beat this Analyst combo.
Yep, and Atraxa flies, nothing here on north side as reach. So I guess, okay, not able to get some lands back, but the concession button there. What a game.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I am so impressed. Filipa, I hope you were taking notes, by the way. You needed help, you said, going up against this Analyst deck, and it looks like Cliff has all the answers.
Yeah, I took the notes. Frillback's main, unlicensed Earth sideboard, cruelty of geeks, my opponent's Atraxa, and then reanimated. Notes taken. I mean, I really liked the way that Cliff played. On a serious note, Sorin was also really good. I really liked the inclusion of that Planeswalker. And I mean, it was pretty unfortunate. Noor was playing a version of the deck because usually there's also the Temur version that doesn't really play with Atraxa and it doesn't play with the black removal. So Noor was playing a bit of a more not a greedy version, but a version with more different colors and more win cons. But in the end of the day, it was not enough against the Golgari deck that had just so many answers.
Yeah, so many answers and so much value. Just every single card, is getting 2 cards, 3 cards worth of value. I mean, that Siren in game 1 going kind of card after card, the cruelty of gifts coming out of the sideboard. So just does exactly what Golgari Midrange has been doing since time immemorial. Just about outvaluing their opponents, and that's bringing Cliff into our live semifinals. So congratulations to Cliff, great job there. And you can see the bracket on the upper half. We're going to have Cliff going up against Burnt Taco. That's going to be the first semi-final. And then the second semi-final, we have Sam Bogue going up against Violet. Both of those matches will be live magic. And we'll just check in with the production team and see whether we are ready to bring you or to start talking at least about one of them. So let's talk about the first of the semi-finals. And let's just look at this deck list again, Filipa.
Yeah, that seems like a great idea. It says here, I selected Golgari with the purpose of beating Analyst combo and Esper. So we saw Cliff beating the Analyst combo, check. And we know that now Cliff is going to play against, guess what? Esper. So let's see if he's able to now beat Esper and just complete the prophecy here of the of the cards. And I mean, that's living the dream, right? When you write in your answer, I brought this deck to beat this deck and this deck, and then you go against that deck and that deck. That sounds great.
Yeah, it's 1 out of 2 so far, but let's have a look at the Esper deck that Cliff is going to be facing in the semifinals because I don't think Van Taco is going down without a fight. They have brought a pretty sweet version of Esper midrange. I mean, we've seen Esper be kind of a presence for several years now, right? Like we talked a lot about how long the standard has been, and this deck has just kind of stuck around through everything, through the Grixis era, through the domain era. Every time Esper's just still there, still doing its thing, still with the wedding announcements. And why do you think that is, Felipe?
I mean, it's a very consistent deck, and it's as Burn Taco said, good against the general field, and it can also be adapted to the meta. So this is not the same deck that we've seen 1 year ago. It has like some key cards that are the same, but it keeps changing, it keeps evolving, and just adapting to the meta. So I feel like it's a very resilient deck. And Rafine is a broken card. I mean, it's a great card to be played and a lot of answers. Same reason why I also feel like some people play Golgari midrange. Midrange decks are really good in an open field meta. So I'm really excited to see how this one particularly plays out.
All right. I mean, I completely agree with you. It's just so flexible. We saw Cliff say that their deck, his deck is here to kind of fight against this Esper deck, but for Esper, I mean, there are a lot of answers, right? Rafine against Shieldred, normally we've seen how that goes before, but there's a lot of answers. Like, there are lots of Go for the Throws, No More Lies, of course, one of the newer counter spells in the format. And I love that there have been a couple of these additions, Fairy Mastermind now in the deck at the 2 drop slot, whereas before, we saw different things there, like Denix of your, oh my goodness, Denic. I just remembered Denic
Yeah.
and his existence. But it looks like we're ready to go down to the battlefield. Let's find out where we're going. Our first live match of the evening. It's Cliff on the upper half of your screen against Burnt Taco on the lower half. And this is a pretty reactive hand. Does have a bat in it though for him.
Yeah, and I mean it always feels different when we are seeing a live match. I don't know why. It just is different, and I'm nervous for them.
Yeah, I
Both
mean,
players.
it's one of those things, right? Like the whole season, because we want to make sure everyone gets to play their matches, etc. We have this structure where you can play your match whenever you want during the week, which I think the players love. But when it gets to the finals, there definitely is a bit of a different vibe because these two players are just sat there right now battling it out. And what do you think Cliff's going to pick here?
It can be bat versus bat. There's the go for throat, but there's two of them, so it's one of those choices that is difficult to make because if you take one of the go for throat, there's another one ready. No More Lies is also a great card that can counter something, but I'm not sure if this mana base, like, is this the land that enters tapped or untapped?
This is the fast land, so this one
The
is going to
fast.
come in
So
untapped. Yeah.
No More Lies can also be a choice here. Yeah, so No More Lies here. It makes sense. If Burn Taco spends the turn using either the bat or go for throat, then they cannot do something else.
Right. And I like this choice here by Taco as well because they could have done something like play a tap land and just kind of get rid of the bat this turn, right? But playing out the bat themselves, getting that information as to what's going on in their opponent's hand, and now Cliff has a 3 drop, has the preacher, but he knows as well there's a lot of removal for this creature in his opponent's hand.
Exactly. And I mean, it was kind of sad that Burn Taco had to take the cut down to protect the bat, allowing then that creature to resolve, but nothing that a Go for Throat doesn't resolve. Um, and now these dreams of steel and oil, which is not going to eat anything.
Yeah, I was thinking, oh, does that hit the Nissa? But no, it's artifact or oh, that would have been the perfect creature to hit off the dreams of steel and oil. So Cliff just finding what he needs here, Filipa.
Yeah, that was the perfect card. Now both players are playing the Bath Mirror.
I mean, do they get to add these cards to their decks after this game? That's how that works,
Yeah,
right?
they're doing the Nile challenge.
Wow. All right. So cut down.
Keton is a interesting choice because then Burn Taco also has mana to play the Virtue and make a 2/2 in instant speed, which is another thing I really like about this deck. It has a lot of things that can be done in instant speed. All the removals, no more lies, Wandering Emperor, the 2/2. So what is it? You always leave your opponent wondering, is it a fairy mastermind?
You always leave your opponents wondering.
Yeah. All the
All
puns
right. All
intended.
right. Love it. I love it. Okay. All right. You heard it here first. We're renaming this Esper Flash. We're done with Esper Midrange as a
Oh,
concept.
but now, okay, so Burn Tackle really smart
Oh,
there, keeping
so
that,
smart.
yeah, cut down to do it in the opponent's turn to be able to counter whatever comes their way. And in this case, it was a form of a Nissa.
I
That's,
love that play. I love that play from Van Taco.
yeah, and now
So much.
even if Cliff goes for Lily minus, Burn Tackle can just flash in a 2/2 and sacrifice it. So, I mean, it's getting more difficult, although there's still a Griggs command, which that card can be also very good.
For sure. And it looks like Cliff is actually just gonna get on the board. I mean, this makes a lot of sense also, right? Like he's pretty far behind on life total. The Dread Knight, I mean, the sorcery side obviously incredible, but you do have to do damage to yourself in order to play that. And the bat has been getting in for a couple of turns, so it makes a lot of sense to me, Felipa, that uh he's gonna try and get these Dread Knights out as opposed to doing something like play the Liliana.
Yeah, it makes sense. It also now that Born Taco is kind of committing with more creatures into the battlefield, Cliff can do something like a Geeks command. Although now with the
Oh,
Virtue, that Geeks command cannot take care of much. Just the bat, maybe sacrifice one of the 3/3s, but it cannot deal with everything anymore.
the Virtue of Loyalty is just so messed up. I mean, this was just one of those cards where, you saw it at pre-release at War of Eldraine and you were like, wow, this card is busted. How can I ever beat this? And then you realize it's not legendary. And
Yep,
you can get multiple copies.
yep, exactly. So in this case, that Geeks command is going to do take care of the bat and one of the creatures, because with Virtue you really want to take care of as many creatures as you can, because I mean Virtue is busted when you have creatures on the board. If you don't, it's not that great.
For sure. And but Burntako is going to get to hold on to at least one of those knights. Is safe from the cut down because it is a 3/3 and it's about to get a lot bigger. Doorkeeper Throll the draw. Is that doing anything against any of Cliff's creatures?
I mean it might, but I don't think much, because a lot of the creatures are dealing, for example, when it attacks and not when it enters the battlefield with a preacher, or Glissa when it deals damage, or Shieldred is at the beginning of upkeep. So actually, Golgari is not the perfect example on how this card can be insane.
Hmm.
Because I'm taking a
Yeah.
look here. I mean, even the Aklazor is on attack as well, so this is not the best example of the
No, it's
power.
really not doing that much, I think, other than the bat.
And Frillback. It's the bat and
Right.
Frillback. Those are the eats, and a lot of the other cards just don't really have an ETB.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, look at this though. Cliff has to go for the throat, takes out that one blocker that Burnt Taco had access to, and even though he's pretty far behind on life total at the beginning of this attack step, that is no longer the case. Oh, and another Dreams of Steel and Oil that's just so awkward at this stage for Burnt Taco.
Yeah, and I mean that cut down would be great against the 1-2, but because of Virtus, that thing is going to grow. But again, then Liliana minus is an option. So not great here for Burn Taco, knowing that Cleve does have access to both ways to remove the creature.
Right, and there's still another Restless Cottage on the battlefield as well for Cliff. So, you know, maybe that prophecy is kind of creeping up again. Cliff said, came here to beat Analyst, came here to beat Esper. And suddenly in this game one, looks like this Golgari deck is doing the job for him.
Yeah, doing a very good job. I'm a really fan of the Restless lands. They've proven to be so strong against board wipes, against removal, against a lot of things. Um, so
And it's big, like a 4/4. That's chunky. And
yeah, that's
yeah,
going to
Bud
be
Taco's gonna
enough.
pick it up.
Yeah, that's enough because even if Cliff did remove the Restless Cottage, there was exactly 6 damage left, and that's exactly what was needed. But now sideboard, we can see what is going to be added and taken. We see those Dreams of Steel and Oil really not eating anything twice.
No, that Dreams of Steel and Oil really didn't, but it could have, right? Like it is still kind
It
of
could.
good against the Dread Knight. It's just one of those things where the timing really has to be right. So maybe a little bit awkward, kind of situational card there. We saw Kutzel's flanker coming in straight away.
Yeah, I'm taking a look here at the deck list, and we see the Doorkeeper Troll removed immediately. That card. I mean, as we discussed, there's not a lot of Enter the Battlefield effects. Fairy
Yeah, and
Mastermind is a good
Tashana's
inclusion.
Sidebinder though. That's a really sweet card against this Golgari deck.
Yeah, against Shieldred, Aclazod, I mean, a lot of things. Preacher as well. You get so many use out of it.
Oh, that is not the opening hand that Burnt Taco was looking for. Just one land here, though it does have a lot of really nice spells in it, as these one landers tend to look like. But that's going to be sent back. And all right, okay. How about 4 lands and Fairy Mastermind and wedding announcement? You're not going to say no to that, Filipa.
No, you're not going to say no. Wedding Announcement is one of those better cards against Golgari, I feel like, because it does allow you to start making a board. And I really like the cards that Burn Taco has access to. There's a cut down on the other side that can take care of the Fairy Mastermind. But I think here Cliff might even go for the Deep Cavern Bat, and then Burn Taco does have a cut down. So
Yeah, and this was very interesting because Cliff didn't play the duress, right? He decided to hold up the cut down for bat instead, which makes sense if your opponent has a bat. But Burnt Taco actually played around that pretty nicely. Though Cliff doesn't take the bait on the bat himself.
and taking that wedding announcement is great, I must say.
Yeah, that's so sweet. Oh, and if Burnt Taco goes for the fairy mastermind here, it's gonna be a disaster.
Yeah, but I think that's what Born Taco is thinking. They're like, okay, I mean, sure, do you have it? And when you ask that question, usually the answer is always
Oh,
yes.
yeah, that's pretty heartbreaking here. And wow, these first few turns have played out beautifully for Cliff.
Yeah, and now that Liliana, 2 bats, wow. So
Liliana
Cliff
and
is not
bats.
the cut down, so the deep bats are not that great because they can be cut down, but Liliana starting to plus can be really good when Burn Taco is kind of low on cards in end. So here having to choose and going for that cut down.
Oh, how about a bat
A
as
bot is
well?
actually a very good choice because it will be able to take care of that Aclazon.
Yeah, bat can take Alcazars, and then there is a bat, but then Liliana can also minus, right?
Yeah, Liliana is great because it's not only a discard spell, but it's also a removal spell.
God,
But
I feel like
maybe Cliff will think like, oh, maybe there's a virtue, like another 2/2, and if I minus the Liliana, they'll sack the 2/2 and the bot will stay alive. So here, seeing if the coast is clear first.
yeah, this is pretty sweet. I mean, and this is kind of forced, right? That you got to use this go for the throat now, otherwise you're going to lose it. So those two cards are going to get exchanged. Cliff just with a cut down left. Burnt Taco just with a deep cabin bat left, but the big difference here, Cliff with the Liliana of the Veil on the battlefield. And honestly, I did not think that here in 2024 we would be seeing Liliana of the Veil dominating standard yet again, but she's here, and every time she's in standard, she is going to play this exact role of just being such an oppressive force on the battlefield.
Yeah, and here kind of awkward because I know that Cliff really wants to play that Aclazot, but not enough mana removal. So that Liliana is not plus eithering. Like you cannot plus it right now. But look,
Mhm.
that after all, that removal spell came really in handy to take care of that shield root.
Right, and I mean, it makes sense because Bentago knows about the Akazars, and also the Cliff's deck is not that expensive, right? So if your opponent isn't really playing out stuff, you can kind of tell it's probably removal in hand. And Cliff rips a great 4 mana card, Sar in the Mathis off the top. That finds the land, and now we're on for Akazar's next turn.
Yeah, this is not looking good for Burn Taco. That Rafin's Tower is not the card that they were looking for, I'm sure. Two Planeswalkers on the board, and Aklazot is coming next turn, and they know about it. I mean, this is pretty much a nightmare for this deck.
Definitely not where Burnt Taco wants to be. Just cycles and just finds a Darkling Shores. At least that can get played onto the battlefield and not have to be discarded to Liliana, but that's really, the slimmest of comforts for Burnt Taco facing down Akazas himself on the battlefield.
Yeah, and if this card gets to attack, I mean, usually that's just game.
Oh, and that's really what Burntaka was looking for last time, but that's not going to do it. And CliffBoyardee is going to be your first semi-final winner and into our live finals. And he's still in with a chance of becoming the champion of VML Season 11. Great stuff there from Cliff. And Filipa, that's 2 out of 2. Analyst, tick. Esper, tick. Wow.
Yeah, Cliff, you're not only a great player, you're also a great prophet. So teach me your ways. You're
Yeah.
manifesting correctly. Like, teach me how to manifest like that. And I mean,
I may.
it's working.
I think it's funny because you're like, teach me how to manifest, and I'm like, teach me how to buy lottery tickets.
Yeah, no. Can I get in on that? Actually,
Yeah. We'll split it, Phoebe. We'll split it.
That's great. I mean, a Cliff living the dream and advancing into the finals.
Great stuff there from Cliff. And of course, congratulations also to Burnt Taco for making it to the semifinals. I mean, that is no joke, making it to the BML semifinals. And we will, of course, be seeing Burnt Taco in action at the regional championships and at the BML championships later on this year, where, by the way, we're going to be sending 2 people straight to the Pro Tour from the BML championships. Very, very exciting stuff, Filipa.
Yeah, also, can we just make a note for the VML finals date? Because Cliff put in the questionnaire, it was these two matchups. And now the last one was that he wants to qualify for the Pro Tour. So let's
Oh,
see by the
okay.
VML finals if he's able to make it and if the third manifestation does come true as well for him.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that for you. And by the way, third and fourth are going home with over $600 in cash. So that is, it's I don't think that's a pretty good outcome for your $20 entry VML season 11. So great stuff there from both players. Congratulations to Cliff. We'll be seeing him back in action at the live finals a bit later on. But now I think we're going to turn to our second semifinals. So let's have a look at our players for the second semifinals of this evening. It's going to be Sam Bogue going up against VioletViatt on the lower half of the bracket. Let's have a look at Sam's list. And Sam is the other Esper Midrange player still in the event. They are bringing a little bit of a different main deck, but not too different, Filipa.
Yeah, not too different. I also like this explanation saying that I decided to go with Esper Midrange with Trolls to have a better matchup in the main Convoke and also in the Dimir midrange. So a lot of interesting choices here, pretty similar to the deck that we saw before by Burn Taco. And yeah, this deck is so strong. We couldn't really see it too much in action because Burn Taco was also pretty unfortunate in the matchup and how things played out. But this deck is so strong, and I'm excited to see if that troll does play a role against this matchup that Sam is going to play against.
Yeah, I think the really not that much difference. There is Kobe Tishana's Sidebinder in the main as well for Sam. But let's have a look at Sam's opponent. It is VioletViatt, and VioletViatt went 6-1 in Division 6 earlier on in the season. Adorable picture of her cat, by the way, who I believe is going to be actually playing the matches as well. So we'll just double check with the judge whether that's allowed. But she has brought Azorius control, and our only hard control player here in the top 8. We had one. I guess the main, I guess, is kind of hard control, but for the real control players, this is where our hearts lie. Filipa.
Look, I love that. I love to see Azorius Control is such a strong deck. So I'm really, really excited to see how this plays against the Mir Control. And I mean, some people just love Control and they just know how to pilot it well. It's not for everyone, but those that are blessed with the gift of being able to control, uh, this deck can go so much. So far, and usually the exiling effects are so good against creature decks. We know that the Dimir deck does have a lot of creatures as well. It does have an emphasis on building the board, so it's going to be very interesting to see how Violet is able to start deciding if she's going to counter or if she's going to wait for the board wipe. I mean, I'm sure we'll see a lot of interesting decisions with this one. Also, I love the Get Lost card. I don't know, that takes care of Planeswalkers
so
as
good.
well. Yeah, I really
does,
like this card.
Yeah, I love Get Lost as well. I mean, hopefully we can go down to the action in just a couple of minutes. But honestly, I am a control player at heart. But it's kind of like what you say, Felipe. It is a different approach to Magic. Like when you watch the Control Masters, when you watch Shota Yasoka or when you watch, Walloon, what's that? What Guillaume Wapatapa, for example, like some of the real like control masters of the game, when you watch them play, like their brains just do not work in the same way. Like it, I'm just so often sitting there watching and being like, why are you not doing anything? You're not doing anything, and then they have 7 cards in their hand for the entire game, don't do anything, and then they win. That's just my favorite thing in the whole world is watching the real kind of masterminds, the geniuses of control do their thing. And I love control, but I feel I am always a little bit impatient. Like I get a little bit worried about things. I maybe kind of counter things too early. And it's just one of those things where you have to really balance having the patience, but also, knowing when to act and when to hold back.
Yeah, also it's not easy to play against control because they can have so many different things. Like they have 5 cards in hand. Is it a counter? Is it removal? Is it a board wipe? Usually all the above. Wandering Emperor, like I don't know. This deck gains so much as well. Again with the Restless Lands, the Restless Anchorage is such a great card, such a win con, and I really really love to see it. And I think Blue Eyed Control is such a strong deck right now. So I'm excited to see. Also, the Deuce is a card that I didn't think would see play in standard, but it
Really?
does.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so good. Oh, this is okay. So for the control players, like whenever a new set comes out, and it's funny because before we came on, we were talking about Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and whenever a new set comes out, the things we look for are what cantrips did they give us and what counter spells did they give us. Like those, I only care about the 2 mana and below blue cards in every previous season and deduce. Oh, just so sweet. Draw a card, and you make an artifact, so your disruption protocol is a counter spell. Oh my goodness, Filipa. Does everything.
Yeah. I mean, I do completely see it now, and I see it's amazing. But it's one of those cards that I was not. It was not exactly like, did you see the Deuce that got spoiled? You know, like I was not thinking about it. It would be so good in blue-white control. No, I was not thinking it, but it's amazing, and it just plays so well in the deck. And I'm really happy to see this format overall and this meta so good right now. We have mid-range thriving, we have control thriving, we have as well some aggro decks really strong like Boros, Convoke. But I will admit, I'm excited for rotation. I'm excited for One Ring Emperor to get out of the meta.
Wow, you take that back about my best friend, the Wandering Emperor. No, I agree. A lot of these cards have been around for a while. I think for me, Wedding Announcement is that card where I'm like, oh my god, I'd be happy to not see another Wedding Announcement for like a good 2 or 3 years until it's in some Pioneer deck or whatever. Like I'm like, okay, I think, but what I think they really should do, Filipa, is for the last like month of Standard is just unban everything. Like just give us Fable back, give us Invoke back, give us Bankbuster back.
Me Took Massacre.
Oh,
Yeah.
Meathook Massacre.
I mean, to be fair, I think Invoke Despair could be good now. It wouldn't be too strong, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it.
It'll
But
be
I
pretty
really
gross
like the
in
card.
that Golgari deck, though. I don't know. Like,
Give us Golgari
if
fans some things.
all right. Let's go down to the
Ooh.
action. It's our second semi-final. Speaking of wedding announcement, 2 copies in Sam's opening hand there, along with the bat and the fairy mastermind, and a little bit of removal. But Violet was on the play, and she gets to send it back with everything available.
I really, really like this hand by Sam here. I mean, a lot of threats. That bat is going to take care of the counter, which is great. And now, if this wedding announcement resolves, which we know it will, Violet will have trouble dealing with this card.
Wow, but do you know what else Get Lost targets?
Never mind, Get Lost.
Just does everything. Does everything.
Oh my god, that card is so good. Just Get Lost. Like,
just get lost. Just get out of here.
that card, like, you look, it's a removal. No, it also takes care of enchantments. Oh my god. But you know what? There's 2 more wedding announcements.
Wow, that's a lot of wedding announcements for Sam. And this
Yeah, a
is
lot
like
of wedding announcements.
this is what control players hate to see. Just these permanents that are sticky, they provide incremental advantage turn after turn. It's going to give some creatures for Sam to use those map tokens on. And things going pretty well for Sam, even though he doesn't really have much of a board presence right now.
Yeah, and I mean, here in Marsh of the Otherworldly Light can take care of enchantments as well, but it will require some mana to do so.
Yeah, I think Violet's really thinking, how much does she need to find a land to play this turn? Or can she just wait, hold up the Wandering Emperor, hold up the Memory Deluge? Because when you're playing control, like mana really is the key thing, right? Like you missing land drops, so brutal.
Yeah, and we see there the Memory Deluge, like really recognizing that you just said, I need mana, not finding it though.
Oh, yeah, that's rough.
That's rough because Violet did look at her top 4 cards, so the odds were on her side.
For sure. And Sam now gets to use these map tokens. I mean, this Soldier still going to be pretty small thanks to the Jace ability, but oh,
Yeah.
third wedding announcement of the game.
That's too many wedding announcements.
Yeah.
Let's be real, that's too much. I mean, there's the
Yeah.
population sunfall, but the enchantments will still be there. I mean, once they stop spawning minions, then maybe Violet can stabilize, and this deck does very well at doing so, at stabilizing later on. The issue here is that the lack of mana really is hurting Violet.
Yeah, Violet's saying, wow, too many people are getting married. Let's depopulate, the society for a bit. I don't know. But ultimately goes for the deduce. And we were just talking about this card. Look how much it's doing for Violet.
Yeah, he did find the land, so that's good. That Jace is going to take some damage, but to be honest, it's not the end of the world. It's still going to be staying alive, which is great. And this will allow Violet to try to board wipe next turn, although we know about the No More Lies
Yeah.
on Sam's side.
Yeah, Sam getting to play this flash game now is pretty sweet, right? Against control. Like, one of the main advantages that control decks really have is this ability to play at instant speed. And if you get to play at instant speed and you're putting threats on the battlefield, it can be very strong. But we know, of course, Violet has the straight up counterspell Disruption Protocol.
Yeah, and usually the control deck does win the counter war, and we see that here. So that the populate is going to resolve, but this means that Violet has no mana left. That Jace, though, it's still there after so many turns.
It's difficult to get rid of him.
Yeah, and that's where this land is really great, and it's going to start dealing some damage, creating some map tokens.
But this is the thing, right, Filipa? Like, yeah, Jace is going to go down, but look how many resources Sam had to expend to try
Yeah.
and get Jace off the battlefield. There was that attack last time with the 1/1s. Now this restless anchorage. They're using up all their mana. And Violet says, okay, Jace, you soaked up like plenty of damage from me, plenty of resources. I'm still 18. Now Violet gets to untap with just all of these resources at her disposal.
And another card I'm excited to rotate is Farewell. Farewell does take care of enchantments, so that's a way to get rid of the wedding announcements.
Yeah, you make a good point.
And Memory Deluge. I mean, this card is so good.
I love Memory Deluge. And actually, I was thinking, okay, Violet is playing a lot of Memory Deluges in her turn to find these lands, but actually her deck has a lot of tap lands. So that's actually kind of heads up, Filipa.
Yeah, and here Sam slowly but surely dealing some damage, but not enough. Violet's still at 15. And it looks like what was once a very bad situation for Violet, she's starting to stabilize slowly.
Sam's thinking, do I just use this opportunity while Violet's tapped out to just get some of this stuff on the battlefield?
Yeah, straight up. I mean, that's a 5/4 as well, which by itself is pretty scary.
Yeah, but look how much removal Violet has. Just Sunfalls, Farewell, March of Otherworldly Light. There's a Wandering Emperor as well.
But that's why I think the Dimir mid-range is the deck from the mid-range decks that does best against these control deck, because you are able to flash in creature. You can flash in Wandering Emperor, you can flash in Fairy Mastermind, so you also have the Restless Anchorage. So even though Violet is able to Sunfall, there's still a lot of damage that is going through with both land and now a 4/4 attacking.
All right, so we are strapping in, by the way, my friends, because these games can be very grindy. They can go pretty long. Violet has the option to use this March of Otherworldly Light to maybe take out this token, but looks like she's going to be holding on for a minute, hoping that Sam might deploy more resources, commit more to the battlefield, get more value out of those sweeper effects. And now with 8 mana available, I can start thinking about how to do more than one thing a turn, which is where you want to get to.
Yeah, and that get loss is pretty good to get rid of the Wandering Emperor. It's a way to deal with planeswalkers, creatures, enchantments. Just such a great card.
Let's see what.
Oh, I love it.
Interesting. Do you
Such
go
an
for it here if you're Violet?
I mean, it's such an adds-up play to just auto aura the Wandering Emperor. But yeah, we know about the Get Lost, but that will allow Sam to now play that Fairy Mastermind, which has 4 power because of the 2 wedding announcements. And also there's the Restless Anchorage. Of course, we know there's a March in the other side, but
Yeah, that was a very interesting exchange. I mean, I think ultimately, if you're in Violet's seat, you're pretty happy that you managed to get the Wandering Emperor off the battlefield. But these wedding announcements are just making all of these the creatures that would not normally be threats into big headaches.
yeah, exactly. And Violet is at 11. Life is a resource, and um, that bat will be able to force Violet to use the March.
All right, so this is kind of interesting now. Violet has to use the March. I think probably has to pitch Wandering Emperor here, but then the bat gets Farewell. It's tough.
Yeah, it's not an easy choice, so it looks like going for the Farewell, and that Deep Cavern bat is able to go for that Wandering Emperor, and Sam's still going to be able to deal some damage there from the Anchorage, can still use that map token to to successfully make it bigger. And now it's a 2-turn clock, so even if Violet has to go for Memory Deluge, she needs to find something that deals with this Restless Anchorage.
Right, and this is kind of what we talked about earlier, right? Because Violet, maybe there was some opportunity to use Farewell. That's not a field of
That
her own
can
is
deal
not
with.
helpful.
Well,
It
it can
can
deal
deal
with the
with
land.
secret.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it is
Yeah.
a bit helpful. It takes care
Okay.
of that land and still allows that Memory Deluge to be used. So here, Sam going for it anyway.
Yeah, I think you've got to make your opponent kind of use the thing they have, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It makes sense. So here, Sam can get a land. Oh, only one land left, one basic.
Okay. All right.
This bat will deal 3 damage, leaving Violet at 2.
And Sam has this Doorkeeper Throw, which has Flash, I believe.
Yep.
So to make another lethal threat at instant speed, which Violet must be aware of. Oh, there's Rafine.
Yeah, so this Memory Deluge really needs to find something good. Something that deals with the bat and potentially with the troll as well.
Oh my goodness. Okay, what's going on here? So, Violet, I saw a Jace there at the top of the library, but we are going to have to find out together what Violet is going to be choosing. Jace is kind of interesting. I wonder how many cards are in Sam's library. I mean, at what point does Jace become an actual win condition here for Violet?
I mean, you know that the card on top is Rafine, so it's a way to at least get rid of that Rafine.
Oh.
And Wandering Emperor does gain life.
Okay, so Wandering Emperor can get the bat. The Wandering Emperor gains 2 life. That puts Violet up to 4. Doorkeeper Thrall would be 3 power.
4. 3 power, exactly, yeah. But there's another Wandering Emperor.
Right, but yeah, Violet has that second Wandering Emperor now. So just holding on really by her fingertips. This is just what control decks do, Filipa.
Yeah, control decks are like, no, there's no way I can win these, but there's always a way. And we see here
It's like there's no way I can win this, but there's also no way you can win this.
Yeah, so I mean, things are looking pretty good. There's going to be a connive trigger, which that Wandering Emperor right away taking care of that
Oh yeah, do
before
not even don't even go there.
gaining more life. I mean, at this point, this is great for Violet. Back to 6 and fizzling that connive trigger. Now drawing cards from the clue. That
Okay.
chase can also help. Although there's no answer for Rafine, there is some Restless Anchorage, but we know that Sam does have the removal.
Right, but here, I mean, there's some interesting stuff going on here because Jace can go mill a lot. Let's see whether it's a draw 3. Yeah, it's a draw 3. Oh, that's a Sunfall.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, things are looking more and more difficult here for Sam, and those incubation tokens can start to attack pretty soon.
Yeah, Violet's gonna play it safe, passes it back with the deuce and no more lies up. Oh, a land is not what Sam was looking for.
Yeah, and you're just like, nope. At this point, it's when control is winning, and we saw how control can shift things around. And I mean, I have to say, the MVP for me was Field of Ruin.
Yeah, that field of ruin was so clutch there for Violet. But I mean, Sam got so close, right? Violet was down to just 2 life, but 2 life is not 0, and that really is the mantra of control players.
Yeah, life is a resource, especially when you're playing control. I'm excited to see here and curious to see how our players are going to sideboard. Uh, I mean, a lot of cards that are not ideal against control, like those cut downs, are immediately cut down.
Well, but these go for the throats might be sticking here for Sam, at least one of them. Because you also have to think about what your opponent's sideboard looks like, right? And it is open decklist for these players, so they do get to see what each other's playing. And, there's 3 copies of Chromehose Sea Shark in the sideboard. There are those Restless Anchorages to deal with as well. So, pretty reasonable, I think, for Sam to at least hold on to 1 copy of the removal spell. That second hand looks really nice here. No more lies into wedding announcement, into Shieldred. I mean, this is what you're looking for, right?
Yeah, this is exactly what you're looking for. Those are the ideal cards. Of course, we see that Violet also has access to Get Lost, the Shark, Memory Deluge, No More Lies. So both players having great ends.
Okay, and it's going to be tap lands on 1 for both of them. Sam is on the play, so he gets to go and untap with 2 mana first. And wow, Fairy Mastermind just plays so well with No More Lies.
Yeah, that card is so good. And yeah, looks like No More Lies will be used here. Or no, maybe just the Get Lost can be used later on. See, and that's why I cannot play Control, because the way that I would immediately counter everything, But you cannot counter everything.
You cannot. And the patience is going to pay off here for Violet. Says absolutely not to the wedding announcement. And guess what? She gets to untap and deploy that Chrome Host Seed Shark under the No More Lies. So things going pretty well here for Violet. Even has the answer to Shieldred in the upkeep if she wants to go for it.
Yeah, and Get Lost is a great card. It also makes you an incubation token, but paying off against the patience of getting that Destroy Evil. So now Violet get to choose what removal to use on Shieldred.
Yeah, it's interesting here because Violet doesn't have 2 white sources, right? But Destroy
No.
Evil, obviously, that is what you want to be using against children and be saving that Get Lost.
Yeah, so now here Sam will be able to deploy this wedding announcement. There's no counter magic, but Violet can always activate that incubation token, and then there's the Get Lost. So things are pretty close here.
No 5th land for Violet. That's not great for her, but she does still have plenty of options.
we did see her coming back from a situation like this before. That Rafine is amazing, but we know about the No More Lies.
Wow, 2 copies of No More Lies. Violet is very interested in people telling the truth.
Yes. No More Lies, and both players cannot find the 5th mana, so it's going to be a close game.
Oh. And Sam's actually going to get to use this negate to protect wedding announcements. So you just see how important this card is for both players. 3rd copy of No More Lies. For
Yeah,
Violet,
that's
still no land.
not what you want to see. I mean, the incubation tokens are stacking up, but Sam does find the 5th land. It is tapped, but it's there.
Yeah, I think Sam just does not want to go shields down from his own copy of No More Lies.
And here this Deluge probably most likely getting No More Lies, and it gets exiled, which works pretty well against this card.
Yeah, that is really sweet. Violet needs to find a land, does find a land. It is tapped, but that, I think, is step 1 here for Violet. Oh, and that's a farewell on top too.
Yeah, farewell. And now being able to use the No More Lies against Rafine, or even Get Lost. So quite a bit of options here.
I think, for Violet, there's a little bit of danger there. Like if you don't find that 5th land, you want to be hitting those land drops into your turn 6, 7, 8. But now that she's found that 2nd white source, it's going to be opening up so many options for her.
Yeah, and honestly, the mana, always keeping mana open, has prevented some to play things like Rafine. This Shark has been doing so much work that even with wedding announcements, Sam cannot attack. So yeah, and here Violet now taking the aggressor seat and attacking with that 4/4.
And this is what you were talking about earlier as well, Filipa, right? Like, it's hard to play against control. If you just play out all your stuff, they might have the counters. If you play around the counters, it's going to set you back several turns. There's always this question: how much do you commit to the board versus how much do you kind of just let things go? And so it's tough here for Sam in the mid-range seat. 2nd copy of Rafine. It's nice to have a spare.
Well, and also now we have access to mana to play Rafine and be able to pay for No More Lies. So that can be a possibility. Try to Rafine. We know that that card is a really strong, and
it's going to be a lot of triggers for this Rafine if it lives.
Yeah, a lot of triggers. It's a very dangerous card, and it resolves.
Yeah, makes sense. Violet says, okay, well, if you have a 2nd spell, the worst thing would be to make you pay 3 and then Sam just plays a wedding announcement or something, right? So I think pretty reasonable for Violet there to hold up the mana. Go for the throat on top.
That can take care of Shark, which it is providing a lot of value for Violet.
True. Very true.
I cannot quite see what are the counters on the tokens, but I think it's a 3 and a 2 potentially.
Oh, on the incubate?
Yes.
I think it's a 4 and a 2.
Oh, okay, that's pretty good. And here we see the deuce.
Oh, no attack.
Getting land is always good.
Yeah. All right. So if you're Violet here, you have proactively getting rid of the anchorage. Okay. Oh, shuffling away that go for the throat.
Yeah, and that's why these players are right now in this seat, and they are doing so well in the tournament. I mean, no more go for throat on top. And this way also Violet just making sure the mana is good. We do see Fairy Mastermind, which that card is great. I think at this point Violet really wants to find a board wipe to take care of these Rafine and these tokens that are going to grow it every turn.
Sam has been so patient, by the way. I have to really admire Sam's play in this position because I think a lot of players would be like, okay, I've got a Rafine down, right? I'm just gonna slam, I'm gonna connive a bunch, I'm gonna try and see, where it goes. But Sam recognizes like there's a lot of danger involved in just kind of going for it. And if you lose your board, like that, you've lost the game at that point, right? Because it's hard for you to recover from that position. So I had to say Sam's patience and kind of this ability to try and maneuver himself into a stronger position against a difficult opponent, very impressive.
Yeah, and we see here exactly how that's played beautifully. Now that wedding announcement resolves, I mean, this is going to make Violet's life so much more difficult. She does need to find a board wipe. Stroke is another great card. We know about Field of Ruins. We know that Violet is ready to shuffle away whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do still have to leave it on top, but Violet has been very, very good at using these Field of Ruins, to maximum effect. Oh, and there's a summon.
Ooh. I mean, I'm sure Violet loves to see that Sunfall is going to not only be able to get rid of the board, but also leave no more lies behind.
Yeah.
And I mean, Sam knows that the top card is a stroke, so Violet knows that Sam's top card is a disdainful stroke, so she can also play around it.
Yeah, that is just the perfect card at the perfect time. Violet even found a copy of Chrome Host Seed Shark, and now, Filipa, now we snap off the No More Lies.
Yeah, I mean, there's still going to be an attack from the Restless Anchorage. There's still the wedding announcement trigger, but look at the amount of incubation tokens that Violet has available.
And they're beefy. That's a 5, I think, from the farewell. There's a 6 hiding out there as well. So those are some pretty like difficult to deal with creature sizes for Sam.
And another shark, and Violet does have perfect information, so she knows what's up. And now these Field of Ruin taking care of that Restless Anchorage. Once again, Field of Ruin being MVP in these games for Violet, and a lot of damage is going to start being dealt. It's a race now.
Biggest one. Yeah, the biggest one is coming across. That's a 6/6. Sam's really on the back foot here. Violet already a game up, so really hoping to clinch the title spot, right? The final spot right here, right now. Cycling land, not what Sam's looking for. It's a redraw.
No.
And that's gonna. Oh, is it? Is it gonna do? It's
Yeah.
gonna do it. VioletViatt is going to be your second finalist. Congratulations to her with Azorius control and Filipa. What a performance for our control.
Yeah, both players played beautiful. In the end of the day, I'm not surprised that games that go long go favored towards the control player. And I mean, those Field of Ruins were amazing against those Restless Anchorages. And post sideboard, the Shark is so good in this matchup, being able to make these tokens. But both players played very well.
Absolutely. And congratulations to Sam as well. I am sure that this is not the last you're going to be seeing of Sam Bogue. Excellent play there, very patient. Knew exactly what they had to do, but just couldn't quite get there this time. And so there you see it. The two finalists here in VML Season 11, CliffBoyardee on the top half of the bracket, facing up against VioletViatt on the lower half of the bracket. Let's just remind ourselves of their decks again, because I think it's worth thinking now about how these two very dominant lists are matching up against each other. They've both beaten out Esper, which I think is really what they were targeting here. But
Yep.
how is this Golgari deck going to face up to Azorius?
Well, I'll be honest. When I play this deck, because I also play a similar list to this, I don't like going against control, but I also don't like going against Analyst combo. And Cliff won that beautifully. So maybe I'm just doing it wrong. I mean that the rest main can be really good. There's some cards that are going to be dead and only after sideboard will be relevant. Like the cut down needs to go against these deck. But other than that, like it's actually pretty well prepared. The bats are strong. Nisa is good. The soaring can be really good. If the soaring resolves, it can be really good against control. We saw Liliana shine. Liliana shines very bright against control. The only thing is that Get Lost is a card now that does take care of Planeswalkers, but otherwise, Lily is such a great card.
Honestly, Get Lost is just insane. Like you look at it and you think, okay, they get 2 map tokens. Like that's a lot of value to give to your opponent. But just the fact that it's 2 mana and it deals with literally, I mean, not literally anything, but pretty much everything that you care about, right? And it's just, oof, just does so much.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's going to be a close match. And again, like there's cards like Aklazot that if they get to attack, they are unbelievably good. But realistically, do they get to attack against control? So it's a bit of a game of, does Violet get to counter? Does Violet get to have the Sun Falls? That's a very strong card against this deck. Field of Ruin is going to be great against Restless and Restless Kutash here.
Yeah, for sure. Let's have a look at Violet's deck once again and just kind of think about how these cards match up. Like you said, Field of Ruin did so much work against Esper, hitting those Restless Anchorages. Now it could potentially do a lot of work against Restless Cottage. And that's the kind of thing, right? These creature lands, traditionally, they've always been so strong against control because they get around the sweeper effects. They get around a lot of sorcery speed removal. But nowadays, I mean, Field of Ruin is just does everything.
Wandering Emperor is such a great card against a lot of matchups, but also against Golgari. It will definitely make Cliff wonder, can I attack with my Shieldred?
Oh my goodness.
Can I go for attacks here? And that is exactly what Violet wants, to then be able to do something like a Memory Deluge. And, like, no, I'm not going to Wandering Emperor, but you're not going to attack because you're afraid of Wandering Emperor, and then I just get to Deluge. So that usually works out pretty well.
Yeah. Well, if Cliff wins, Filipa, I'm sure you can get the Cliff notes for how he did it afterwards.
Yeah, I'm already taking notes. I love to see it. I'm a big fan of Golgari, and I love to see it do well here. But I'm also excited about to see how this control deck does. And Violet did so beautifully against Sam in the last match.
Jump in
So
for a second here.
For sure. Yeah, Phoebe, come on.
Did you really ask Filipa to get the Cliff Notes
Oh
for
yeah.
Cliff's deck?
Yes, I did. I
Okay.
did. In fact, I did that.
I'm just
Do you have
making
Cliff
sure we're
Notes
clear on that.
do you have Cliff Notes in Portugal, Filipa? It's
no, I don't know.
it's
I'm lost in translation.
so okay, you know in school when you have to learn like a Shakespeare or something like a difficult piece of literature, there's like these
Yes.
little books you can get that kind of summarize the text that aren't
Okay.
really, it's like got little extracts, but it's like this big. They're like you kind of study aids, I guess. So the
Okay.
Cliff Notes version is like the kind of like TLDR version of something.
Yeah.
That's
okay. So I
Cliff's Notes
definitely
for
need
War
the...
and Peace would be like this length of an actual regular novel instead
Yeah,
of War and
Right.
Peace.
yeah.
I don't need those kind of Cliff Notes, but I want all the Golgari Cliff Notes, to be clear.
Okay.
Don't give me any
All right.
Shakespeare. No. Just the Golgari specifically.
All right. Love it. All right. Okay, so we've got a few minutes before we're setting up this finals match, this very exciting finals match between CliffBoyardee, who has many fans, I believe, here in the audience as well as in the booth, apparently. And with this Golgari deck that is stomped all over Analyst, is stomped all over Esper, and now it's here to challenge Azorius. But Filipa, I have to say, this control list is just so sweet. It covers all the angles. Like you have creatures, it can deal with them. And you have planeswalkers, it can deal with them. It can deal with the graveyard, it can deal with enchantments. Like just all of those things that normally players find different angles to attack the game. It really seems like Violet has it all.
Yeah, I mean, I love the list. I just don't like playing against it because I usually lose, but it is very good. Control is in a great spot right now. I really like how it does have access to so many cards. Again, the Deuce, Field of Ruin, Get Lost, Wandering Emperor, Sunfall, Farewell. I'm really excited for some of these cards to exit the meta. I'm not going to lie. But I never saw so many exiling board wipes in Standard. Like Temporary
I know.
Lockdown, Farewell,
Sunfall, okay,
Sunfall.
Sunfall is crazy to me. Like, uh, I know right now we're in this kind of period of time where power levels are going up, which I love personally. But the when Sunfall was first printed, I kind of just stared at it for a second, and I was like, wait, this is only a rare? Like, it exiles and it leaves behind a giant threat? Like, why did we ban Meat Mexico? You know, like how much mana did that cost compared to this? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
interesting.
Sunfall for me is the real massacre, and that card is just so good. And I mean, I'll be honest, I like to see it. We've seen standard matters where control was not good at all, and I feel like a good LT standard meta always has control being a fair and a good deck. And yeah, I told this before. My opinion on this standard format is that it's great. There's a lot of different decks that can thrive and do well. So it's been a pleasure playing standard for the past years. It's not been always like this. Remember when
No.
Oko was a thing? When cards were getting banned every month? Like,
So first of all, yes, I do remember when Oko was a thing. Second of all, I
It's
loved
causing me to
Oko.
drink.
I loved the old Oko. I loved playing those Oko mirrors. I was one of those degenerate people that just was like, "Yep, it's turn 3. I'm gonna play Oko. You're dead." But there was definitely a period of time, like the Uro band, the Oko, Omnath adventures. Do you remember all of that stuff?
Fires,
Lucky
Winota.
Clover. Oh, Fires with Nota. Oh my goodness. And then even before that, with like when Sultai Energy was banned for some reason, and like rampaging Ferocity. There were a good 5-6 years of a lot of standard bans. And I know we've had some bans recently, but really nothing like we used to see. And that this big format, I think, really is a big part of that.
We had 6 different decks on the top 8. We had 4 matches that we showcased today, and all 4 matches, nobody was playing a mirror. So that goes to show, like, you never know what you're going to play against in this meta. And this is a very good sign of an LT standard format. And I think even players that usually don't enjoy standard, at least the feedback they've been giving is that it is very fun to play right now.
All right, let's have a look at our players in the finals, the grand finals, VML season 11. And one of these players is going to get crowned the champion after 11 long weeks of battling. We have CliffBoyardee on the upper half of your screen with Golgari Midrange going up against VioletViatt on the lower half of your screen with Azorius control. And look at this hand from VioletViatt already. Get Lost, Wandering Emperor, Sunfall, Deluge, and Farewell.
A lot of good resources, but the Dread Knight is a great card to get some card advantage as well on the Golgari side.
Yeah.
And
sure.
to also start pressuring a bit.
Yeah, and you know, we see Cliff not messing around, right? Cliff said, I'm not going to mess around with drawing a card first. You know, I'm just going to get on the battlefield, try and get you dead as quickly as possible. VioletViatt being very patient, saving the Get Lost, and it finds a great target in the form of that Sentinel.
Well, if VioletViatt does have Get Lost, I don't see Cliff getting lost with so many maps on the board. Sorry, my bad puns are thriving. It's 5 a.m. here.
Well, but to be fair, I mean, actually, I think if you have one map, that's the optimal number of maps. Having too many maps can be confusing. That's my opinion.
That's true. No more lies there. Right away, taking care of that, and we start seeing one map drawing a land, so not bad.
No, I think Cliff's pretty happy to keep just getting through the deck, finding these lands. VioletViatt needs a land. VioletViatt finds a land, and I think she'll be very, very pleased to be untapping, sending it back with 4 mana up.
Geek's Command is one of those cards that is fairly bad against control because the blue white deck exiles, right? So you cannot even get back your creatures from the graveyard.
Mm, right. I think there's just a Sentinel, but otherwise, yeah, that other Dread Knight was countered and it went into the graveyard. It went into exile. So you're right. It's not doing everything that it wants to really be doing. It really does shine against the creature strategies more. But Cliff gets in for another 3 and Violet down to 11 after this attack.
Yeah, Field of Ruin on Cliffside is also really good against the Restless Anchorage. That's also providing a good mana base here for Violet.
Oh, to rest the draw. And now I think we're probably gonna see Violet lets it resolve.
Yeah, I mean, Cliff looking at these cannot be happy, right? You're like, okay, take Wandering Emperor, you deluge. Uh, Sunfall is on the board. Farewell. So
Hmm.
many answers. There's Field of Ruin on the board that can take care of the Restless Cottage. So
Yeah, that Wandering Emperor does hit the bin, but as you say, it's not like there's a lot of good news for Cliff in that hand.
definitely not a lot of good news. And I mean, Cliff did manage to get quite a bit of cards from those maps, but Violet now will be able to get some cards with the Memory Deluge. And I mean, the good thing about playing against Golgari is that you know there's no counters.
That's true. I mean, when you're the only blue player in the match, you can kind of just have free reign to do whatever you like, whenever you like.
Yeah, and that 4-3 is there.
Okay, so we are hearing that we have maybe a little bit of a rules issue, maybe a bit of a discussion with the judge. So we'll keep you updated on that as we come back to the booth. And that, I mean, you know, it's just the same as in paper magic. If you have a problem in one of these online events, you are absolutely well within your rights to chat to a judge. You know, we would encourage it by all means. So let's just wait for the players and for Elaine, our head judge, to sort that out. But meanwhile, Filipa, what did you think of that game so far and how it was going?
Well, the game could go either way. I feel like Violet probably has the advantage because a lot of cards in the Golgari mid-range deck are kind of dead cards. Like the cut down we see is not going to have a lot to do. The Geeks command, as we saw, can also not do much. So at the same time, Cliff also plays Field of Ruin, so there's not a lot of win cons before sideboarding the sharks on Violet side. So it can go either
Mm.
way. But
Hey,
usually is a
Jace.
strong card.
Jace is a win con, I will have you know.
That's true. Jace is a win con. That's true.
It's funny, Felipe, because I hadn't played standard for a little while, and when I was playing standard, I brewed this very fun like reenact the crime deck, you know, with like conspiracy unraveler, and you like
I
have
know.
the graveyard, cool deck. Anyway, I was playing on that, and I was just kind of beating up on everyone, and then I played against Jace. I just instantly died. Like there was just no way on earth that my mill myself for 10, every turn deck was gonna beat Jace. Unfortunately.
But that deck is really strong, actually. I also play against that deck sometimes when I'm playing in best of one, especially. And it can do some really, really nasty things. Reenact the Crime is certainly a card that I can see play more standard in the future. Right now, there's a lot of exile cards in standard, mainly because of the lands deck, but the lands deck will rotate because those sacrifice lands will get out of
Mm.
standard. They're from the streets of New Capenna. So that deck will become completely unreliable. So I guess more people will stop using exiling effects like the frill bag or even Unlice Earth. So that will definitely give a window for these reanimated decks to shine again.
I love reanimated decks. I was brewing, with that the emergence card. What's it called? It's like green and black. It's like one green black, and it
Oh,
has
I know. Yeah.
a squirming emergence.
Yes, for
Yeah,
squirming emergence.
yeah, and you can do really disgusting things with the 2 mana, the founding of the third path, like the saga that mills things, and the picklock pranks to the fairy. And it was so gross. But reenact the crime. There's just nothing like, oh, I'm gonna use my Kaito, put a breach the multiverse in the graveyard, reenact it, breach, get my conspiracy unraveler, then all my spells are free. It's just
And then you
the
exploit
worst.
into getting the breach again, and then
Yeah,
that feeds your graveyard, so then you get it
yeah,
again, and then you do it again, and then eventually your opponent just doesn't have cards in their deck after so many um, breach the multiverse, and you pass the turn, and your opponent dies on the upkeep on the
yeah.
draw.
But what is really fun actually is that you can, because you also play Atraxa, so when you're playing against specifically Boros Convoke, they have Imidane's Recruiter, so you can get your Atraxa and give it haste with their Imidane's Recruiter.
That's so mean.
It's it's so sweet. I went in thinking, oh wow, like there's no way I can beat Boros Convoke, but it turned out Boros Convoke was like the best matchup.
Yeah, Boros Convoke is a great deck, though. I'm kind of sad that we didn't see it today, but it's one of those decks that I feel like aggro decks are not doing great, but this one keeps on doing well.
For sure. All right, let's just check in with the production and tier team. Seems like they're still okay. We're gonna go away for a little break, my friends. When we come back, we're gonna bring you back to the live finals of the VML season 11. We'll see you in a bit. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to coverage of the VML finals. It's season 11. It's the finals, and we are back. We do apologize for that little break in the transmission. We had a bit of a judge call from the players. So I'm just going to explain what happened here so that everyone knows kind of what's going on. Basically, during game one of the finals, we had CliffBoyardee going up against Violet. Cliff is on Golgari, Violet is on Azorius. And I think basically what happened was that Cliff had a card that showed up in the deck that wasn't in the deck list that he submitted. And it's very easy to do, when you're testing for these things, you have a million different lists on Arena. I know I would have like 5 different versions of the deck with different names, whatever. So easy to do. Point is, what's happening is that Cliff is receiving a game loss for that game one. We're going to go into game two of the match, and Violet's going to get the game win in game one because of that decklist error, which if you played a lot of paper Magic constructed events, you'll know it's the same fix, basically, as in paper. And it happens to everyone. It's just one of those things that is a feature of tournament Magic. But we are going to be back here with the action from game number 2 with Violet up a game in just a couple of minutes. So, Filipa, with the players kind of getting ready to go back into it, I know both of these players said they're very excited to get back onto the regional championships, onto the competitive scene, onto the pro tour. Like, what if you're kind of trying to get yourself into that scene? What's the best way to approach it for some of our players out there?
Well, there's amazing resources. I know that the VML has some testing teams, so I know those have performed very well in the past. So I highly recommend the players that do qualify for the regional championships or for the pro tour through the VML to do find those resources, to do find other players that are like-minded and that can test together. When I qualified for the regional championship in Lille last year because of the VML, I actually met some fellow VMLers and they were testing together. They were in the same apartment, and I was so happy. And just shows like the VML brings not only competitive Magic but also a community, and you can make friends. And it's just an awesome way to enter in the more competitive Magic scene, which it's scary, It's scary to
It's
play these
scary.
tournaments. Yeah,
No,
it's scary.
absolutely. And part of the reason we started the VML in the first place was because we were kind of sick of it. Like, we were sick of going to these events and it was just the gender balance was awful. Like, if you think Magic competitive events have bad gender balance now, like, you should have seen what it was like 5 years ago. It was a different world. And um, when we and so kind of we wanted to make these support networks for people, which has been going pretty well. And I think now, Felipe, is a good time to talk about the next season of the VML, because we do have this cycle where we have 3 seasons in a year plus the championships. The top 8 from each season makes it to the VML championships, where they get to fight for those pro tour invites. So the next season of the VML, season 12, is going to be starting pretty soon. It's going to be starting in May. So watch out for announcements about when to sign up in the next few weeks. Like, there's not a lot of gap between these two. So we'll make sure that everyone's updated, of course, when the next season comes up. But we're about ready to go down back into the action. Game number 2 now, and Violet is a game up because of that judge call just now. So let's see how things play out between these 2 players, and you're going to see Cliff concede game 1, because that's how you enforce this kind of game effect on Arena. And players do get to sideboard, so we're going to go into post sideboard games here, Felipe.
Yeah, so we see the Sharks immediately coming in. That card is so good against mid-range decks. More counter magic, so a lot of resources on both sides. Cut Down is a card that usually is not good against control, so I'm sure Cliff is going to get rid of that card. We saw also as well the Griggs command. I don't think it's great against control, but we might see the cruelty of geeks instead. So a lot of options on both sides, and a lot of micro decisions to make that can actually be very relevant in the end. I
For
feel like
sure.
when I'm sideboarding, I can always find the cards that enter. I just never know what to take off.
Oh, I'm 100% the same. I'm kind of sat here looking at Violet's list thinking, I love all of these cards. Like, how would I even choose? Like, how would you even choose between them? You know, I think like Destroy Evil, you're playing against a Shieldred deck. Destroy Evil seems pretty good. You know, it also deals with those lands. I don't know. But Violet, these players have probably tested these matchups infinitely. They're going to know much better than us. That's why they're here in the finals of VML Season 11. So, game number 2 here between these two players. Violet is a game up, and that's a nice opening hand. Get Lost, Chrome Host, Seed Shark, Wandering Emperor.
Yeah, great cards for Violet here, and it looks like Cliff is taking a mulligan. We cannot quite see the cards on his end, but okay. Keeping here a decent hand that does require mana, though.
For sure. But Cliff has 2 copies of the Mosswood Dread Knight, so they can be, used on that adventure side to get through the deck and find Cliff some more resources. So in game 1, we saw Cliff be very kind of keen to get onto the board quickly.
This also sends a message to Violet because Violet knows that in the past game, Cliff did that play pattern of playing the Dread Knight. So yeah, I hear no land, and I'm sure Violet is going to take advantage of that. That Go for Throat is really good against the Shark though, and Cliff able to get another land, so that's good.
Yeah, the third land means we have a game here. Cliff's hand is pretty cheap. All of these threats can be deployed for 3 or less mana, but first of all, it's going to be Go for the Throat, taking out the Shark. But oh, look at this. Second Shark off the top for Violet.
A Shark is always on the perfect time. Oh, and another one. Is this a Shark Tank?
Oh my goodness. I can't even. I can't even deal with this. But it looks like Cliff can deal with it, at least deal with the second shark in the form of Liliana's Veil coming down.
Yeah, Liliana, great because it gets to stay on the board, and now we might see a shark keeping a get lost as well in case Cliff plays a creature or some other threat. There's the duress, so I wonder if Cliff goes for duress if Violet decides to use the get lost on Lily.
Pretty tough, right?
Yeah, pretty tough because I mean, Violet might just not play it, and Cliff might just want to go for the Wandering Emperor, which in the end is such a strong card.
I think this is pretty smart from Violet. Just saying, look, let's see what you value, right? Let's see what makes what you're more afraid of, and that I think actually gives Violet quite a lot of information about what's going on for Cliff as well. But Cliff found that fourth land here, and Slump is going to mean that he's going to get to play the duress, the second duress. Though maybe Filipa, this was the problem with taking Wandering Emperor first.
Yeah, so now this Get Lost is going to take care of Lily. But honestly, now Cliff is able to have so many threats. Like there's 3 knights, there's Glissa, there's 2 preachers, so it's not over yet. Although this is a great draw for Violet.
Yeah, Memory Damage, exactly what Violet was looking for, to refill the hand, kind of get back from losing all of those cards to the duresses. But Cliff gets to play the Glissa, and there's a couple of map tokens as well to help him find some more land.
Yeah, and this works so well with that shark making these big tokens.
Yeah. I mean, Cliff's deck is sweet. Like, it's the threats are like so mana efficient, Filipa.
Yeah, that Glissa is going to definitely be able to do some damage. We might just see a Memory Deluge here trying to find a board wipe.
By the way, First Strike and Death Touch, come on.
Yeah, that works pretty well.
Who approved this? You know?
Look, that works so well against aggro decks. If they don't have something like a lightning bolt, or if you're playing against a mid-range deck, in this case, a go for throat, that card is going to almost always deal damage.
Yeah, it's very sweet indeed. Cliff using the map token on the Master Dread Knight. And by the way, Violet, I think, did a pretty heads up thing. It took a Ganjo off that memory deluge, which is a nice clean answer that can't be dressed, can't be battered, etc. From the memory deluge earlier.
Yeah, and this bat here going to not get anything.
Yeah, that's a sad
Because
bat.
yeah, because that deluge is in the graveyard, so that works perfectly. And that deluge is going to make a 7/7.
Yeah, the Seed Shark is insane.
Yeah, it's very strong card.
Yeah, I think this is a good point for Violet to kind of have a read of Glycer. Like, how scared am I of this? Can I afford to just kind of ignore it for a turn and go for the deluge? But ultimately, she decides, no, let's just get these threats off the battlefield. She's even going to have the mana to turn over one of these incubates.
And this is where this deck starts to gain momentum, and why this shark is such a great sideboard card.
It's funny because I feel like the control players side it in every matchup.
I feel that as well. I was thinking, like, when don't you side the shark? Why don't you just play it main? I'm sure there's a reason, but
well, you have to get your opponents to side out that removal first. You see,
that's true. That's the reason. that makes sense. There's the Sunfall now, which that card.
Oh, doesn't want to
That's
have a
going to
cheeky attack
make.
first.
Might just want to attack with the incubation token, since Violet cannot use the Wandering Emperor anyway, and that way deal a bit more damage. But no, just passing, maybe saving the mana to activate a token.
Yeah, it has the Field of Ruin available as well for the Restless Cottage there. So here comes Preacher of Schism ×2. And those are pretty scary threats as well. I mean, just the amount of incremental advantage you get from those creatures attacking every turn, I would be worried, I think.
Yeah, those creatures are great. And I mean, Wandering Emperor can destroy one, there's blockers, but it's always going to give you the value. In this case, it's going to give Cliff 2/1/1s because Cliff has less life than Violet, and Violet choosing to be aggressive here.
Oh, look at this. Cliff is going to block both of them.
And we might see a Wandering Emperor plus.
That, honestly, Filipa, that's my favorite mode of Wandering Emperor. The combat trick mode. It's just such a blowout.
Even though Preacher has Death Touch, the first strike makes it not matter.
Right. And that's why the first strike Death Touch is so busted on Glycer.
That's true. We might see these Wandering Emperor, or we might see Violet just playing more patiently and just going for keeping those incubations up.
Well, this is very interesting because Violet has been so good at dealing with these creature lands, and I think Violet's thinking, okay, I'm gonna miss the opportunity to turn over another incubation token, but I get to protect that memory deluge that's in the graveyard, and that is pretty important for her at this stage.
Yeah, now getting to keep a 5/5 on board, Wandering Emperor, 3 incubation tokens, at least 1 Restless Anchorage. I mean, things are looking good. That the rest is going to take a No More Lies, but that doesn't even matter that much at this point with the amount of things that Violet has available.
So Master Dread Knight hits the battlefield for Cliff. Field of Ruin is going to take out the Anchorage on the other side as well, but Violet's going to be untapping with Wandering Emperor active, with a 5/5, with multiple other incubates available, still another Memory Deluge in the graveyard as well. And look at this. Violet says, this is the moment, right? This is the moment where control players say, I'm turning the corner, I'm getting in. And what are you going to do about it? Look at my giant army.
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy decision. Two 5/5s attacking. I mean, that hurts. 5 damage. Now Cliff is down to 10 life. And next turn, Violet has a full army that, unless Cliff finds a board wipe, which I don't know if that is even in the board post sideboard. Yeah, that's not going to be it.
Yeah, that is not going to be doing it. And I think that's lethal. There you have it. Just good games from Cliff, and Violet is going to be taking home the title of the champion of VML Season 11 with Azorius Control taking down Golgari Midrange. What an incredible what an incredible set of games from Violet.
Yeah, Violet played very well. I really love the patience, and I think a control player does need to have this quality. And overall, Cliff also played very well throughout all day. We got to see multiple matches, and all the games, honestly, today were so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, congratulations, of course, to Cliff as well. It was an incredible run in this season, the VML. We know Cliff's got a lot of fans out there, and he played his heart out, had brought a great deck, played very, very well in the quarters and in the semifinals. So just, you know, these the situations like the ones you saw, they come up, they happen. But congratulations to Violet with the Azorius deck. What a showing. And I think Filipa, just a great metagame call for this top eight against this field full of mid-range players.
Yeah, definitely a very good call. There was only a one Boros Convoke deck in the top 8, and even then, I feel like this Azorius control deck is prepared against aggro with so much removal, with so many board wipes. So overall, I feel like this was quite the games that we had today, and congratulations to Violet on making it to being a champion here today. And not only that, but congratulations also to all the top 8 that not only showcased amazing talent, but they also qualified for 2 amazing tournaments.
Yeah, I will be very much be looking forward to supporting all of our top 8 players at their regional championships. Of course, if you play the VML, you can qualify to your local regional championship. It doesn't matter where you live in the world. And we'll be supporting them, of course, and seeing them back on your screens for the VML championships at the end of the year, where they're going to be fighting to punch their ticket to the Pro Tour. Do we have Violet on for a winner's interview?
Yes, we will
Hi,
in just a
Violet.
few moments. So
Okay, we're gonna have
here's our
Violet
winner.
on. All right. Hi, Violet.
Hello.
Congratulations for winning VML Season 11. How does it feel?
I'm shaking. I'm freaking out. It was kind of anticlimactic, but win's a win.
Absolutely. And this was your first season playing the VML, I think, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
Wow. So, what made you sign up, and how has the experience been overall?
I tested with Sanctum a lot, and I had some friends playing. Mythic Michaela, if you know her, good
Yeah.
friends with her. So
Yeah. Michaela's been with us since season 1, so for sure.
yeah.
Um, oh, wow. I mean, have you been playing Azorius the whole time throughout the season?
No, I was very scared of metagaming stuff, so I played a different deck almost every week just to be hard to read. Um, yeah.
Wow. I mean, I think it takes a lot of skill for Filipa to be playing a different deck every week. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I thought you were just playing as Aris Control all the time because you play it so beautifully. But I mean, you
Thank
said
you.
you test with the team Sanctum of All, and I know that team is amazing. Do you have like any experience? Did you qualify for the Pro Tour before or any like regional championship?
I played Pro Tour Mom. I've played a handful of RCs. So
All right. Wow. I mean, congratulations for making it back to the regional championships, and we'll be supporting you, of course, going into that event and hope to see you at a future Pro Tour. So, what do you think? What would you say to people out there who are maybe thinking about signing up the VML, or maybe they haven't made a decision yet?
I would say just give it a try. Worst thing, you lose $20 and play against some good players. Get good practice. It's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you win what, $1,400 and eternal VML glory.
Yeah, we'll be getting you a VML winners token for sure, and we're going to be updating the Hall of Fame to make sure you're in there as well. So, um, Violet, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations once again on being champion of VML season 11. Filipa, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here with me this evening. I think we are ready to say goodnight to our friends in the audience, and thank you to our sponsors, Wizards of the Coast, of course. But I want to say, don't go away. Like, don't take your eye off the VML, because we're going to be back for season 12 in pretty short order, and we'll be seeing you all there next time. So have a great evening, have a great weekend, go enjoy your pre-releases, and we will see you next time here at the VML. Congratulations again to Violet.